Okay guys, it's looking to be a nice ass day outside, so what better day than to start on a customer's box build. Now, a lot of you people asking me sort of how to design the boxes, what do I do, what programs do I use, you know, just some advice and tips on building boxes basically. So I thought I'd just do a quick video and do some snapshots of this build going ahead and just give you some tips along the way to help you out when you're looking to design a box and build one. When it comes to box design, I quite like to use Basebox 6 Pro. There's plenty of other software out there which may be better. You've got Horn Response as one, which is very good, but a little more complex, and just for a simple ported box design, so I can get a rough idea of how it's going to sound and what sort of port I need. I quite like to use this program. So I'm just going to go ahead and start a new design, and I'll start with the driver. This customer will be using a RE Audio XXX V4, which is the latest version. Fortunately, the database has this sub already stored, and as you can see, I load up all the parameters. Now these are the TS parameters. I'm going to choose series coils, which is what he's going to be running it at. Now as you can see, not all of them are filled in, and BB6 can actually calculate some of the rest of them. Now as I'm calculating them, you can see that it doesn't actually like how some of the parameters are tallying up. It could be because they were measured slightly incorrectly at REHQ, or they're just not what it's expecting. It's not a problem. I'm going to go with what RE says for these parameters here. I'm going to go open the box tab, and I'm going to choose a vented box, and I've measured it up earlier. That's about right. So it's about 5.2 of the empty box. This is a low FS sub, nice and low, around about 21 Hz. So I can get away with having a low tuned box while still playing relatively flat. He likes his decaf and his hip hop down low, so I'm going to tune it nice and low for him so he doesn't bottom out. I've got 26 Hz tuning there with a F3 of 21 Hz so far, which is fantastic. Now when I did this earlier, I remembered my ports. I'm going to go for one round port, an aero port, 5 inches, which brings me at about 13 inches long with 2 flared ends. Let's have a look back down at my parameters here. Yeah, looking good. No dampening. The bracing I've taken into account for in the cubic foot here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit plot and see how that comes out looking. As you can see there, then it starts to really start kicking in about the 30 Hz mark, and then sort of slowly going off. 20 Hz is still relatively strong there, so it's quite a nice curve. In the car, this will actually be a lot shallower roll off because you have the cabin loading, so it'll actually be even better than this when it's actually in the car. This program doesn't take into account cabin loading or anything like that. Important one to look for is cone displacement. If your box is too big, then this will be shooting off into the grey area. Now this sub has a huge X-Max of 54mm, so even playing 2.5K through this at 5 Hz, it won't be backplating or actually leaving the X-Max, leaving the coil gap, which is fantastic. As you can see, there's a slight dip there around tuning where the box adds load to the sub, but that's not going to be a problem at all. It's going to be moving quite a lot, but still within its X-Max. Vent velocity is also fine. That's perfectly fine as well. That's not too high. That's going to be just about right. It's going to put a nice amount of load onto the cone itself. So once I've worked out the cubic foot and the tuning and the port size and whatnot for the box in BB6, I always draw it up in Google SketchUp. The reason I do this is because you can kind of build the box first and see how it's going to come out, any mistakes you've made, any you know, you can kind of work out where you're going to put your bracing. You can kind of do it right in front of you before you even start building it, which I think is wicked. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. This is the initial plan that I had for the box, much more simpler shape and those colour designs. Decided to change that up. The shape is slightly different. His car has this kind of weird shape in the boot where it's going to slot in. It's a BMW. And we needed a bit of extra depth because this RE sub is about 13 inches deep. It's really long inside, like goes down inside the box really far. So we need a bit of extra depth there. So what I do is I build it up in SketchUp, as you can see here. I make sure that I've got exactly the wood, exactly how I'm going to be putting it together, with the bits overlapping and stuff, and inside as well. And then what I can do is I can just measure each of these pieces and draw it out on a big piece of MDF, the size that you get from the shops, and see exactly the best way to cut it in the store so that you minimize your losses and you get the most offcuts to use later. So this is how it's going to all come out on the section of wood. I'll fit it all onto one big sheet of MDF, which is nice. Obviously I've got some angles to do, so I'll do those at home, but it's best, if possible, to get as many of the sides and as many of the straight edges cut at the hardware store as possible, because they're always dead straight and very accurate. So it saves you having air gaps in between your joins and stuff. It's a very, very straight cut. And then the angled bits, I'll be doing at home. I'm trying to get as accurately as possible and as tight as possible with no air gaps. Okay, pretty much everything's set up, so let's go get the wood now. Okay, so we'll be at the hardware store. Oh, that lady nearly stacked it over. Oh, look at that, look at that. Old school there. Now my car got rear-ended by a motorcycle the other week, so I'm having to drive around this piece of shit courtesy car, and no one gives a crap about a courtesy car because it ain't yours. Now I could do one of those at home, always using top of the range equipment. Anytime today would be good. Okay, shitty little car's loaded up. Let's take it to the crib. Okay, so I got all the wood home. Now, as you can see, I've got a shitload of offcuts with this one. So I want to go ahead and label up each of the bits of wood as to what they are. Makes it a lot easier when you're piecing it together. As you can see, by drawing it out on SketchUp on the piece of wood, I've minimised my offcuts to these tiny slithers, no big bits of offcut that are the wrong shape. The only other offcut I've got is this huge long piece down here that will be good for cutting a top shape with or anything else. So I've got a nice big bit there and some slither offcuts, and that's what the advantages of doing it on SketchUp. First thing I'll do is draw out where all the bits of wood are going to be glued and stuck together, so I can draw some pilot holes in here. Now this is really handy for these offcuts, because that is the thickness of the wood that I'm using, and I can just use it to draw out where all the wood's going to be on each different piece, draw the pilot holes, and then they're ready to go together. And when you're working out where your screws are going to go, take into consideration where other screws will be. So there can be some screws coming up from here, there's going to be some screws going in the side from here on this piece. So I don't want to be putting a screw here, because then the two screws will crash into each other. So on the edges I always leave some gap on the edge. So I'll start a screw there, and I'll start another screw sort of about here, so that there's a bit of space for different screws going different ways so they don't hit each other. You don't need to go overboard on the amount of screws you use either. I see a lot of people putting hundreds of screws way close to each other all along. The glue that you use actually creates a stronger bond than the particles in the wood itself, so all you need the screws for is just to hold the wood together nice and tight whilst it sets. So you don't need hundreds of them, just enough evenly spaced out so that there's no gaps, and if you've got straight cuts there won't be any gaps anyway. Now this box has a slanted back, so when I draw the pilot holes for these ones at the back, I don't want to do a pilot hole straight down, because then the screw will probably pop out and come out the angled piece on the face. So I want to drill down at a slight angle so that these screws go up at an angle and straight into the piece of wood following where it's going. MDF dust is some nasty shit. Gets in your lungs, gets in your eyes. I've had coughing fits after a few days of working without wearing a mask, stuff in my eyes like it's hay fever season. So whack on a mask, whack on this, look like a plonker, but let's get cutting. Once you've drilled your holes, I always like to add a countersink. If you don't have a countersink piece, I seem to have lost mine, you can use a large drill bit on a low setting, just be very careful, and just make a very small indent in the top there for the screw head to sit in. So I'm just marking up the top piece for the subwoofer hole cutout and the port cutout. This first line here is where the bottom raised bit starts, so I don't want to mount the subwoofer past this line, otherwise the motor will probably hit this bottom bit. So I want to mount the motor between here and here. It's a 13 inches across subwoofer total diameter, and then the cutout is 11.5, so I'll be marking those in a minute. And the port I want to have next to it here would be a 5-inch port here, going down into the box, again missing this bottom bit as well. Okay, it's slowly starting to take shape. I've just rested the top piece on here so I can work out the exact angle of the bottom piece. Now I can go ahead and use a jigsaw and cut an angle on a lot of these pieces here. That one's already on there. I'm going to cut that on the jigsaw whilst it's on there. And then, yeah. Okay, so I've got the sides on, these side bits that go out wider. As you can see, the angles are all cut there. That was a little bit of a nightmare, getting that angle perfect and then matching up with this angle here. Had to do the old jigsaw, getting the old angle on there. As you can see, got a slight angled plate. Same on the other side, and also on this piece, which is the back piece, that is angled there and there as well, so that sits up nicely flush against this base bit and then up on there. I'm just going to cut out the squares on this side so that the back looks correct and fits. And then I'll be screwing it in and working on the top and sides. Okay, so I've got the sides on now. Angles are all correct. Nice and flush going down there, down there, down there. So now I'm just going to go straight up and get the back on. I'm not going to cut this angle until the back's actually on. I can put the box on its side and I can do that really nicely with the jigsaw. Perfect angle on that. Not going to do that beforehand. Once that's done, it's just the top to go on. Do the next bit of bracing. I've got the brace that goes on the bottom there. That's the cutout for it. Hello. That's not my cat. Okay, so it's just the top to get screwed on now. As you can see, around the back, angles are all looking good. The top piece, need to shave that off. What I'll do is I'll screw it down first and I'll get the angle on the jigsaw and I'll just run along there, and the blade will actually skim along here and keep it dead straight for me. So I'll do that after I've screwed that down. Same again with the bottom. I'll turn the box upside down and skim again with the blade skimming along this bit to keep it nice and straight. Shave those bits off, get it nice and flush at the back. Front is looking good, and I'm going to have another baffle on the top here that I'm going to do a nice design with. That should look quite good and should go along nicely. I've got the port. I've got some left over here from a previous build that I've forgotten about, so lucky I haven't got to order any more port. I've just got to order the flare, and that's perfectly fit in there. Just got to push that down a bit further and I'll go further in, cut that the right length. And this is the right size for the woofer. I've got to get the router and go along upside down and get rid of this bit here, and that'll be fine. And then we're looking pretty good. Good day's work, I'd say. I'm just going to start work on some simple bracing. Got the sizes cut out there, they're not glued in yet or screwed or anything. For bracing, I quite like to round over the edges so it's smooth inside. I've just got a router bit here. This is a small round over piece. I don't want to use it too big for the bracing. It's just to give it a smoother finish. So the router just runs along the wood and just makes a nice little cut and rounds all the edges off really nice and smooth inside. And then around the outside of the box, I use a slightly larger router bit to go around and make it a really nice smooth finish so that the carpet goes on and kind of wraps around it really nicely. This probably isn't the recommended or the safest way of doing this, but I don't really have any other choice with this big ass router here. So I turn it upside down, whack it in my workmate here, and then my bracing, I just can run that along and get a nice smooth rounded edge like that, because putting this down and having the big heavy router is not very easy to get a smooth edge on it the other way around. So I like to just run it like this, almost like a worktop router. There we go, nice and smooth, just looks a lot nicer and feels a lot nicer as well. So this is the tool that I'm using to cut the port section off there. It's about 12.5 inches of PVC, and the flare has to go on top still and make it a tiny bit longer, and that tunes it to around about 28-29 hertz for the box. As you can see, I've got a saw here, keeps it nice and straight, nice and easy to do. Okay, so top is on, the first layer. The back is all smoothed so that it all lines up properly. It's looking very nice. That was a bit of a bitch to do, but no worries. Now I've just got to design the top piece. Going to do a nice shape on there so it's double baffle. Got that drawn out on here. I'm going to draw a nice design on here. I'll probably draw the design in half, cut out half of it, and then router the other half so that it's identical. And then that will go on top, and it should look very nice. Okay, so I cut out the top shape, that's not on there. I deliberately haven't cut these circles exact yet, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to router them. So I'm going to screw this down temporarily, get the router and go around it on the bottom circle so that the circles are identical. You can't really do that separately with a jigsaw. So that's going to be routed exact, and then what I'm going to actually do is this whole box is going to be carpeted in a light grey carpet. That will look really good. Okay, so the circles have been routed so that they're identical on both pieces. I've screwed temporarily down that, and I've drilled all the pilot holes for this ready to go into the second top piece. Now I just need to remove this and run the router around the box to smooth over all the edges. I might have to take a few screws out as they're quite close to the edge. Sometimes you get a lot of sparks and it's pretty cool. Okay, so that's the whole box done with the router. Starting to really start to look nice now. Top piece looks really good with that smooth edge, all smooth all the way around, even on these angled bits at the back here. Just a quick first go around with the router. I need to sand it off still to get rid of any tiny little jagged bits, and then it'll be prepped for the carpet. Okay, it's just about to go ahead and carpet this box up. The port is in there and it's glued in now. The bottom of it there is also flared ever so slightly, just a tiny flare on the bottom, doesn't need anything huge. Let's just wipe that glue off there. That doesn't get us. So yeah, just going to go and carpet this. I've got some spray adhesive here, which you need to use. I'm going to roll it up. This might be a little bit tricky with a Stanley knife, getting the shapes right on the sides because it's a weird shape. But obviously I'll do my best job on this and see how it comes out. Okay, so that's all carpeted up. I'll give that a brush in a minute. It's looking quite nice smooth edges on the side there as well. Can't really see it, it's getting dark now. So now I'm just going to take the port here, which I have already cut out the centre for. As you can see, that had a middle piece in there, which I've cut out. Just used a jigsaw real quick. And now I'm using a Dremel here with a sandpaper end, just to completely smooth down these sticky out bits here so that it's nice and smooth in the port. Once that's done, it slots straight onto the piece of PVC pipe there, and then it's ready to go. Okay, there we go guys, finished product, looking good, all wrapped in carpet. I've got the old Pioneer sub here, which I blew ages ago on my videos, just to show the fitment there. Port is flared, that also come out nicely. The bottom end is also flared at the back, which I did using boiling water trick over a bowl. I've got the terminal on the back side here, which is nice in the centre. He's going to mount the amp to the back of the box, which I didn't recommend, but he's not really got anywhere else for it. I said to him, get lots of rubber feet and another piece of wood to try and cancel out the vibrations as much as possible. I'll do a video of the first time this gets powered up in the car, just to show you what it's going to be capable of. Hopefully we should be seeing some nice air movement, some good flex and some smashing bass from this.